Well, good evening. This is another video in a series of videos I'm doing to explain this RC conversion for a 35th scale tank. It's a model of the TI-67 Israeli tank, essentially a modified Russian T-55 tank. And my big discovery is that I can use the hang long 16th scale electronics will fit in this tank if you take the electronic board out of the plastic box that you find it in with the 16th scale tanks. Then it'll fit into the 35th scale tank. And I've done that, and everything is working very well. And I've made a video showing the tank performance, and I'll probably hopefully make enough videos to fully explain everything I've done. But today's video, what I wanted to do was talk about the gun elevation design. Gun elevation, and specifically what I'm adding and what I'm in the process of designing, which is the gun retract, the cannon, basically the cannon recoil effect. So this does not have a cannon recoil effect. What it's got is, what you're looking at is a shaft. I cut a paper clip, and this is just, shaft is made from a paper clip. It's super glued to a little round 3D printed part, which is a light press onto the motor shaft, so I can still turn it. And when I turn it, it takes up some sewing thread. The sewing thread runs underneath the turret floor, and it hooks on to an aluminum tube, which is then press fit into the gun. So the idea is that I have thread, which is hooked right to the end of this tube. The tube is press fit into the gun. When I pull on the thread, it raises the gun. When I relax the thread, it lowers the gun. And that's really all there is to it. The trick was to get the gun to move slowly enough, and that was accomplished by getting the very lowest speed, 15 RPM gear motor, $5, and using a very small shaft, so that for every rotation of the motor, there's very little movement at the back of the cannon, and the cannon takes several rotations, maybe 4 or 5 rotations, for the cannon to move all the way down to all the way up. It's 11 seconds, basically, which is what I wanted. I wanted the ability to make the cannon move slowly, and I wanted the ability to make small moves with the cannon, because I think that's probably more realistic than pushing elevation and having the gun move full travel in a half a second. I don't think the tanks were actually that fast. They were probably cranked manually, many of them. So that's the basic mechanism, and now the challenge is to add a recoil effect. So the way to do that is with a servo, and so what you see here is that I've taken the same mechanism. This is basically just the same 3D print, essentially the same 3D print. And I've been hacking it up using a Dremel tool to take plastic off where it was interfering. And what I've added is a servo, and the basic addition to the mechanism is all on the left side. If basically on the right side of the mechanism will remain unchanged. The motor goes into this opening, and then there's a shaft that runs parallel here, and there'll still be a thread that attaches to the underside of this link, and when the motor turns, the thread will spool, and the link as it moves will change the gun elevation. This is sort of a prototype. I don't have the full gun elevation because I've got things that interfere with gun elevation as I made design changes to add the recoil. So I really need a fresh print of the gun platform before I'll get full travel on my elevation back, which I hope I will be able to do. But the recoil works smoothly. I've tested it with a conventional transmitter. I have not run it with the Henglong transmitter yet, because the Henglong transmitter doesn't natively support a servo recoil. Not in the 7.0 version, at least. In the 7.1 version it does, but the 7.1 version is a lot more expensive than the 7.0 version. What's cheaper is just to use a $5 Arduino. $4.80 actually is what I'll be paying. Shipping, tax, plus Arduino, $4.80. And with that, I can control the servo and any number of LEDs and probably lots of other stuff which I don't need to control. The Arduino will be triggered with a signal. Instead of flashing an LED as I'm doing now, those LED wires will run to the input on the Arduino and signal it to execute a program, and what the program will do is drive the servo and one or more LEDs in some kind of a little recoil and light show to flash the cannon lights and retract the cannon. So the mechanism, to describe it, you can see here I've got a very small wire that runs, and it's super glued to the very end of the cannon. And when the servo moves, pulls, and pushes on the wire, it can't be a string because I'm pushing as well as pulling. Because the gun, after it retracts, it has to be pushed forward to its rest position again. And right now it's in about a midway position. It will pull back until it pretty much goes all the way back until it touches the link, and then it goes forward further than it's sitting here. So it runs from here. The travel is about from this red line to a red line, which is located right there. It's about that much, which is probably unrealistically long travel. But with the Arduino, you can set how far in degrees to move the servo. And so basically I can control the travel, and I can control the speed, and I can do all that with far more control than I could with the Henglong 7.1 transmitter. For instance, I can go back fast and then let it return to its rest position slow. I could even change the speed along the way. Basically, I have a lot of control with the by writing a couple lines of code in the Arduino. So things to say about this. So the basic mechanism is, now instead of the tube, this aluminum tube is no longer press fit into the cannon. Instead, the cannon can slide on the aluminum tube. So the aluminum tube will be pinned to a link right there, and the link pivots, and then another pivot on the link is right at the end. So with the cannon kind of resting out here on the hole in the mantle, as this link is pulled down, it pulls the gun up. It's again thread that pulls it down, thread spooled up by a shaft on the motor. So that's so basically the gun elevation works the same, but now once this is in a particular location, the tube is now fixed. It's held fixed. Whether it's level or down or up, in all cases the tube is held to that position. And then the servo pulls or pushes on that little piece of wire, which then controls the cannon movement in and out along that aluminum tube. And the wires for the LED go through the aluminum tube. And the LEDs then are probably just inside the gun barrel. I sort of expecting that as the gun fires and the cannon or the gun is pulled back, it will expose the LED, one or more LEDs, and then I'll control the timing of when I turn the LEDs on to flash them. I know I can do one LED. I may want to experiment with 3 different colors of LED, white, red, and yellow, to see if I can get a more impressive cannon flash. Okay, so that's the mechanism. That's really the whole mechanism. So basically you've got a thread, which is going to pull down for elevation. You've got a little wire, which is going to pull the cannon to and fro. And you have this link, which keeps the gun from waggling back and forth this way and also rotating this way. And of course, it's essential to keep this tube at a particular angle while the gun moves along it. The link is the first design that I've had success holding it steady enough. Other designs I tried, it was difficult to control tolerances, and the gun wasn't holding very steady. And all of that is incorporated into this design. This would be complete but for the fact that I've kind of cobbled it together from the design that did not have the recoil. And there's plastic parts around here that are just interfering and not allowing me to get full travel on the gun elevation. The recoil works very smoothly, but the gun elevation is now only works within a narrow range. So I need to redesign some of this to regain the full 20 degrees up, 10 degrees down gun elevation. Okay, electronics. As I say, the 7.0 electronics for the Henglong don't support the servo, but I'm going to use an Arduino Nano, which is cheap, $4.80. I've used it before on the 16th scale tank, so I already know how it gets wired up, and I have already written the software to do this. The Arduino Nano, I've got a few on order. They're not here yet, or I'd show one, but it's this size. And it's going to need to fit about there. And it looks like it will fit. If it doesn't fit, then everything I've done is a waste, because right now I don't know anything else small enough to put in there that would, well, I could still have servo recoil, but I'd need to buy the more expensive Henglong electronic box if I can't put the electronics in the turret. But as I think I can put this little microcontroller right about there, sitting on top of the servo, and it will fit. Basically, the wires will be the very, very tiny. There'll be these little 36 AWG stranded wires, and there'll be 2 more wires that need to come up into the turret that I have right now, because I still need the wires that I'm currently using to flash the LED for cannon flash. But instead, those signal are used as signal to the Arduino to run its program. In addition, I need 2 more wires to power the Arduino. I need battery plus and battery minus to power the Arduino. Those are new. Those are the 2 added wires that come up through the turret. Also, and this I have to work out, but this link, I have a service loop that allows me to turn the turret probably 5 or 6 times at least, as long as I then turn it 5 or 6 times back. So it's doing a really nice job allowing me to turn the turret multiple times full rotation, which is nice. Well, the link is going to compromise that design, because the link runs right through where the wires come up. So the wires would be coming up through here, and of course it might be as simple as running the wires up on either side of the link. That might be just fine, I don't know. Or I might do something, I don't know what. But I would like somehow to maintain that service loop that I have now, where I've provided some distance to allow the wires to twist and controlled how they twist. So that's pretty much it. That's where I am with the recoil design for this 35th scale tank. Oh, I guess I should explain. I think this would be a very universal kind of design. This tank was difficult because, as opposed to many of the other World War II tanks, they have a mantle that you've got a pivot on which the cannon pivots for elevation. Here, in the real tank, this would be canvas, and I don't know where the pivot is, but if I put the pivot back here, then where the gun comes through the canvas, because this is plastic, not canvas, the gun would be trapped by this hole right here. So it really has to pivot right at that hole, and there's no way to run a pin right through there. So that presents its own challenge. Basically, the gun needs to pivot, just pivot as it goes right at that opening. And the way I've done that, which is basically, well, to do it just exactly that way, just the cannon just rests in that hole and then pivots right at that point. You could follow that design for any of the tanks that have the mantle that moves as well. The Panzers or the Tiger I and most of the other tanks have a mantle that moves. You could use this design for anything, but I cannot use a pivot for this design because of this simulated canvas here, and the fact that the gun is trapped by that hole, so I have no place to put a pivot to pivot the cannon. Anyway, that was a special challenge to make gun elevation work on this tank, but it's a design that I think would work for then any tank. Basically, you pivot the gun where it comes through, right where it comes through, as opposed to a dedicated shaft to pivot the cannon at. Okay, was worth just pointing that out. That was a special challenge with achieving with coming up with an elevation mechanism for this tank. So anyway, this is only elevation, no recoil. This adds the servo and an extra link that I need, and now the cannon slides on the aluminum tube and is not press fit to it. So this design should support both elevation and cannon recoil, and when it's complete it will also incorporate a microcontroller to coordinate the servo action and one or possibly more LEDs for cannon flash. And that's it for this video. Thank you. Bye.